So welcome everyone to another Meetup session for the MS Excel Toronto Meetup group. This is November 2022. We are fast approaching the end of the year. And for those of you who are new, welcome. We are meeting every month, usually once a month. We have speakers from around the world. Each time is a different topic. So welcome. I'm glad that you joined us. I hope you join us other times in the future. For those of you who are new, welcome too. And thank you for coming back and for participating in this community and making this such a nice place to be together, to greet each other, to learn from each other. It's always so nice to see you here. And I'll have a couple of announcements at the beginning of the session, and then I will pass the stage to Alejandra, who is joining us today to present about Power Query. So just a second, we will be right there. So if you have trouble with chat or anything like that, you know how Teams is a little bit picky. So just give it a try to disconnect and come back. Sometimes that helps. Hopefully it works. Even if I fell off the call for some reason, problems with my internet or anything, just stay in the call and everything should be fine. The meeting will carry on and Teams should keep recording. We are recording the session and we will be posting later on our YouTube channel. Feel free to check the previous sessions there. There's a lot of valuable content there, amazing content there. So our next session and the last one for the year 2022 will be in December the 7th with Victor Momo, and we will be talking about the new array functions, text functions, and array functions, and also the let function will be involved in that presentation. I am sure that you will not regret if you join us for that session, as always, in fact. For all the sessions, that's a good statement for all the sessions. We have here a list of all the sessions for the month of November. So there's still a couple of sessions after today's session. This list is published by Faraz Shaikh, who is an MVP. You can follow him on LinkedIn. And feel free to take a picture. I will also, I haven't done this before, but I will start including this PowerPoint presentation on the files. So on the link for the files for this session, you will be able to find this deck as well and see the information available. There's one Excel event coming up in February, not too far away. It's the 3rd edition of the Global Excel Summit. It is organized in London, but it's online. And I'll be presenting for the 3rd time in a row. Very happy for that. If you want to take a look, there will be more than 30, I guess, presenters. There's master classes as well. The early bird pricing was still going on, at least beginning of yesterday or this morning was still on the early bird price. And on top of that, you can get extra 10% discount if you use Celia 10. So feel free to use that coupon code if you want to join us for that session. It's an amazing event. It has run very, very well the previous sessions, the previous editions with networking spaces. It's very good. So I do recommend that if you are available for those 3 days. And there's also the recordings that you can catch up with the recordings later. There's another meetup group run by the Reactor program, which is a Microsoft program here in Toronto. This program exists in different cities in the world, but including Toronto. They run different sessions about all Microsoft technology. So feel free to check that if you are interested in learning about other technologies. There's a Facebook group for consultants, Excel consultants. If you are one and you are interested, feel free to check that out as well. And I'll be sending this information, like I said, if you want to take a look at Excel books, to take a look at our YouTube channel, my newsletter that goes out once a month with what's going on, what is new in Excel, because as you know, Excel has new features and improvements added to the program every month. So there's that, and my blog as well. I'll send that information in case you are interested. In case you want to take a look at my training program about Excel automation, there's also the information there. And that's it. And that's my company, Solvent Excel, as a sponsor for this event. And today we have Alejandra Horvath. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Alejandra is from Mexico, but she's living in Canada for a couple of years now, and she works as an accountant. So she has all these matter to work with every day, all these data, all these reports that she needs to process for her clients. And luckily, she discovered Power Query. And hopefully through Alejandra, a couple of more of you will discover Power Query today, or will be more mindful of what Power Query can do for us. And that's what Alejandra will be talking about today in this session. I hope you have your coffee mug or your tea or your glass of wine, whatever suits you, your water, and your notepad, because you probably need to take a lot of notes. The files will be available, though, at the end. In a couple of days, I'll be sending out an email when I have the recording up on YouTube. It will take us a couple of days. We will send out an email to everyone who registered with access to the recording and the files and all that. Alejandra, please tell us about us, what you are doing these days, and take us from there. Thank you so much for joining us today. It has been a long journey. I've been wanting to have you in the group for a long time. I'm happy that this has finally happened.
Thank you so much.
Sorry, let me just say one more thing. Alejandra, she's been doing a fantastic job on YouTube or through her YouTube channel, but she's broadcasting on LinkedIn as well. She will tell us more about that. And not happy with doing a great job in one language, she does it in 2 languages. So she's been running sessions in both English and Spanish. So if you are a Spanish speaker, then one more opportunity for you to learn. And yeah, so that's it. Thank you, Alejandra. I won't take you more of the time that is for you.
No worries. Thank you so very much. I am very thankful for being here. For me, this presentation is very, very special because I know Power Query because of Celia.
Oh,
yes. So there was a point of time where I was looking for a job. So I thought to restart my LinkedIn profile to start looking into that. And I don't know how, but Celia's tutorials came through my newsfeed. Oh, and I remember seeing like, Power Query. What is that? Like, it looks like Excel. It sounds interesting. So I start looking into that. And here I am, almost 2 years later. I'm presenting with Celia that I just cannot believe it. It's truly a dream coming true. So thank you so very much for inviting me. It's very special to me. So I'm hoping I can do a good job presenting. And please, any questions, please let me know. I will be sharing the files with everybody. And thank you. I'm thrilled being here. So
thank you for letting us know about that. That's very special indeed.
Yes,
I'm so happy. It goes around. It goes around, right? I also learn from other people. So exactly. That's how it is. That's what this community is for. So very, very happy. Thank you.
Very special. So thank you so much. So I'm going to start sharing my screen and I'm going to tell you very quickly a little bit about me. Well, and what we're going to do today. So I see some familiar faces. Christian, Sigol is here. I know Sigol used to watch your tutorials too, Celia. So Sigol is here watching as well. I see Claudia. I see many Mark, many new known names. So thank you so much for the support. Thank you for being here. Some of you watch my tutorials every week. I have Tuesday and Thursday live sessions in Spanish and Saturdays in English. So some of you watch my tutorials there too. So thank you so very much. So we're going to see today the magic of filters in Power Query. We are going to use Excel for that. And as Celia said, my name is Alejandra Horvath. My last name is Hungarian, as Christian said. That's correct. It's my ex-husband's last name. I never changed it, so that's why it's Hungarian, but I'm Mexican. So I'm Mexican Canadian. So as Celia said, I live in Canada. I have 16 years living here, 17 almost living here. I'm a CPA. I'm a certified Excel expert. I have been working with Excel for over 20 years. Actually, I started working with Lotus 1, 2, 3, and then later I started using Excel. So that old I am. I'm actually working as budget analyst, and I am a YouTuber. Yes, I have my channel in English and my channel in Spanish. The one in Spanish is Alejandra Horvath en español, in Spanish, okay? I live with my cat Oli and my cat Gasparin. Gasparin is the white because Gasparin in Spanish is Casper, the ghost. So Gasparin and Oli, and my dog Maya. They are my family here in Canada, and they are the best co-workers ever. So today we are going to go through we're going to review and prepare some queries using filters, using several conditions, one or more conditions. We're going to use parameters, list, cells in Excel. We're going to filter by a specific text or by a range of numbers. I think the numbers are going to be more useful for you. So I'm going to show the numbers. And we're going to do that filter before expanding the table. So we're going to work with nested tables. And we will have time for questions and answers. And oh yeah, that's about it. So if I would like to show you the final product. I like to start by presenting the final product that we are going to have. So we are going to have a list.
Bueno.
Sorry, Alejandra. I muted you. Just a second, because I was trying to mute whoever has a microphone on. Just a second.
Okay.
You can now speak. Yeah, thank you. Sorry about that.
Okay, excellent. So here we have a list of provinces. I'm going to add the province of Ontario. So I'm going to add that to my list. I'm going to go to my pivot table. I'm going to just right click and refresh, and you will see that the province of Ontario will be added to my pivot table. That is just a very quick example we're going to be doing with the list. We are going to have the information from our files with the minimum and maximum date in that file. And then we're going to be filtering information from these cells in Excel, the ones that are going to dictate which information we're going to see right here. So for example, if I say I want to filter this information for 2020, let's say December 31st, I press enter, I right click to my pivot table, I refresh, and now you see that the year of 2020 is added to that table. So let me start by showing you in here. I have a folder on my desktop that is called Demo 2022 November 16. I have all these files included. So I'm just grabbing the information from these three files. I'm going to open these three files to show you what I have there. I open, and all of them are very simple files. The purpose of this presentation is to show you the filters rather than other techniques. I just want to show you different techniques on filters, okay? So all of them will have 3 lines on top of the title for the columns. All the files will have the same number of columns and the same titles. So not too much complicated stuff there. We will have the dates, the province, the city, and the sales. I have only one sheet. In this case, the file is sales 2019. The tab or the name of the sheet is 2019. Same thing with the other files. 2019, I have 2018. The name of the sheet is 2018. The name of the file is the same, and I have the same structure, right? So 2018 and 2020, same thing. And let's say I'm going to have also information that I'm going to have additional to these files. So I'm going to go to desktop. I have a folder that is called additional info 2022 November 16. I'm going to open that, and that is just 2021. You will see it's exactly in the same presentation or the same layout than the other files. Let's do something. Let's just copy that information. Let me bring this file here. I'm going to say Control-C. I'm going to go to my folder where I have all those files that I show you where I'm going to be working from. I'm going to say Control-V to paste. I'm going to go to my final file or my final product, let's say, and I'm going to change the filter. I'm going to change the date that I want to filter my information to. I'm going to say that instead of 2020, now I want 2021. I can see that my maximum date is still 2020 because I haven't refreshed my queries. So I'm going to go to data, refresh all, and now you will see that the date of my maximum date is 2021 because the file that I added to that folder is 2021. Now my filter will work because now I added 2021, and you can see that my column 2021 is here. I can filter for anything else instead of starting 2018. I can say that I want to start from 2020 June 1st. And I can say, do the same, right click, refresh my pivot table, and now I have the information only for 2020 and 2021. So what happens if I leave one of these cells empty? Let's say I'm going to leave empty date from. I'm going to right click to my pivot table and I'm going to refresh. And what happens? When that happens, it's going to bring me 2018, 2019, 2020, and 21. So I just need to sort this information from oldest to newest, and I can see that in order, no problem. So my query is prepared in the way that if this information is not provided, if any of these cells is empty, it's going to bring my first date on my files or my oldest date in my file. So we are going to do that today. We're going to prepare all these queries that you can see here. So this is the final product. I'm going to move that. Before that, I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to just open an Excel new file, and I'm going to move my solution on the side just to see my final product. See, it helps me a little bit kind of guide in here. So on the files that you are going to have available, first, let me delete this sales 2021 because we will bring this at the end. The files that you will have available is demo, sales 2018, 2019, and 2021. 2020 and 2021. So I'm going to open the demo file. The only thing that we're going to have there, I didn't need to create a new Excel workbook. That's fine. So the demo file will have just the list with the provinces. And that is just to give us a start, because we are going to start filtering by the provinces. I have a list of those provinces. I'm going to select anything inside of that table. I'm going to go to table design, and you can see that the name of that table is provinces. Well, I'm going to bring that to my Power Query editor. For those who are not familiar with Power Query is just a magical tool that helps us to extract information from a source. In this case will be Excel. Brings that information to the Power Query editor, help us to transform that information. In that editor, we're going to add, remove, combine, do a lot of stuff, cleaning that dirty data, let's say. Once it's clean, once it's ready to be transformed in a report or to be used for a pivot table or for a visualization, in this case will be in Excel, so we will have that information ready for a pivot table. Once it's ready, I can load it to Excel and then make use of that clean data. So let's go and open the Power Query editor, and we're going to do that by having or bringing this table to the Power Query editor. So I'm going to right-click inside of the table. I'm using Microsoft 365, and I'm going to select Get Data from Table Range. If you don't have this version or you don't have this option available, I'm going to go to Data, and I'm going to select from Table Range, but make sure that you are inside of the table before you click here. So I'm going to click there, and the Power Query editor will open. You will notice that in the left side, I have the name of my query, which is the name of my table. If my table didn't have a name, will be called Table 1. That will be the name that you will see on the left. If you need to change that name, you just double click there and you can rename it, or you can also rename it on the side, on the right side where it says properties. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see a little bit better. And you will see that Power Query created two steps from us. The first step will bring the information that we have available in that workbook from that specific table. Power Query is just bringing the Excel workbook, the content of that Excel workbook from the table that is called provinces. This is the name of the table. And that table is contained within the column content. That is behind scenes. We cannot see it right here, but that is really the process that Power Query is creating for us. So Power Query has created the process for us, and then it created an extra step. And what it did is just change the data type. In this case, this ABC means that it's text. So it recognizes that this text, the content of this column is text and is based on this first line. So in my case, it's fine. I can leave it or I can remove it. It doesn't really matter to me at this point. But when I have numbers or I have dates, I need to make sure that the transformation is correct if I need it at that specific time. If I'm not going to have any additional steps, in this case, I won't have additional steps. So it's okay to leave it. It's my preference to leave the change type at the end because I need to do the transformation first before I change the type, because when I have a change type, the name of the columns is hard-coded here in the formula bar. If you don't have the formula bar visible, you can go to view and make sure that the square of this box of formula bar is checked. Once you can see that, is my last step, and I'm going to call it my last step because I'm going to convert this into a list. And how I want to convert that, I'm going to just add a square, just a set of square brackets at the end, and I'm going to call these provinces. And I need this as a list because this is going to be the way that I'm going to filter my information, right? So I'm going to say enter, and now you can see that within the same step, we have transformed this column from this table. We have transformed that into a list. I didn't have to create any additional step. So for me, that's fine. That's all that I'm going to do with this specific query. Let's bring our other queries. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to say new query, file, folder. I'm going to grab all those files that I just showed you, and we are going to start transforming that. So I'm going to go here to my desktop where it says demo 2022 November 16. You can have that any other place, but just make sure that you are very aware where you're going to save that. Just make sure that you have that. You will see that I have a big mess over here. You have so many. It seems like it doesn't seem. You don't see the screen?
Yes, we can see the screen.
You can see the screen? Okay. Sorry, I just saw that message. It's like, oh, you cannot see the screen? Okay, perfect.
Eladio, try at the top where it says more. On the three dots, see if you have an option there. Maybe you have a setting that is not allowing you to see the presentation, and maybe you have multiple. If you are on a computer and you click on the Teams icon at the bottom, you may have multiple windows for Teams. See if you can select one of those windows to help you see the presentation. As last resource, you can try to disconnect and come back again. Maybe that will help too. I hope this helps. Okay, sorry, Alejandra.
Thank you. No problem. Yeah, I can see that other people attending can see it. So I'm phew. Okay, excellent. Okay, now I just press Ctrl+C+ to zoom in, and I can see the content of that folder. Well, I cannot combine and transform yet. I'm going to start transforming the data first. I cannot just do that just yet. I have so many files here. I need to select first what I need to transform and then start transforming. So I'm going to do that manually. I'm going to say transform data. Here, the name of my folder is the name of my query. Same thing. If you don't like this, you can double click and you can just rename it. Let's say I'm going to say demo live. So I know this is the one that I prepared right here. And I'm going to see the content, all that content that I have in this file. I don't need to see my queries right now, so I'm going to hide that side. So I'm going to click at this arrow and I'm going to hide that section so I can have a little bit more room on the screen. I can see here the content. The first thing that I need to filter is going to be the Excel files. So I can click at this row and then I can select XLSX, or I can just go to an XLSX, right click, text filter equals. Easy, right? So I'm sure that I'm in an Excel file or extension, and that's what I want to keep. Now, I don't want anything that starts with the tilde. That means that the file is open, and yes, it's open because I just show you the content, right? So it's open, but for Power Query, this file and this file are two different names, has different names. So it will duplicate your information if you leave it as is. So we need to take care of that. And in this case, I'm aware that there is a file open, but there are times that we don't know. And if people are working with this query at the same time, or it's a shared file, there will be times that the files will be open, or there is a risk that the files are going to be open. So let's prevent those errors in the future. So here on the row, I'm going to select there, and I'm going to say text filter, and I'm going to say does not begin with, and it does not begin with that tilde. So I'm going to make sure that my filter is not going to account for any of those files. Also, I need to filter for the name of the file. I need to filter for the name that starts with sales. So here in the second row, or the second option that I have, because it says and, or I can also select or. In this case, I want that both filters apply, so I'm going to say and. And I'm going to say text contains, where it says contains, it contains sales. And I'm going to, in purpose, I'm going to say sales with lowercase. Power Query is case sensitive. For those who don't know, is case sensitive, and And in this case, for Power Query, sales and these sales are two different words. So I'm going to say OK, and of course, it's not going to bring me anything because this sales is not recognized. So fortunately, we have this function here. I'm going to press Shift Enter. So this function in here, it gives me the opportunity to provide an additional argument. So I'm going to give a comma, and it's asking me for a comparator. This is optional, but in my case, I really need it. So I'm going to say that I want the comparator ordinal in your case. And I'm going to press enter. And now it recognizes that, oh, okay, is sales regardless of the capitals, uppercase, or lowercase, it doesn't matter. I can recognize the word as itself. Okay, but look, my Power Query created two steps for me just for that filtering, right? And here I can see that I'm able to provide two different criteria. One is that my file doesn't start with the tilde, and the other one is that the text must contain sales. Well, I can see that I can provide more than one condition. Okay, well, then let's go back to my step. If that's the case, I'm using exactly the same function for both steps. So I'm going to copy this part, which is saying, bring me the information that is in the extension column, and bring me those files, or bring me that text that contains .xlsx. So I just copy that. I'm going to go to my next step, and I can see in here, as I said, I'm using exactly the same function. I'm connecting my conditions by the word and. So in here, at the end, before the last parenthesis, I give some space, and I'm going to say and then I'm going to provide the previous condition, right? So in this case, I'm just saying, from this column, you are going to filter based on this. From this column name, you are going to filter based on this. So I'm providing here the name of the columns that I'm going to filter and what the condition is. So I'm going to press enter. And now that I have everything there, I can write on my previous step. I'm going to say delete. And now my information is filtered and everything is within one step. We have more than one condition. So that helps me when I look at the code, helps me to see all the similar steps at once. It just makes my code a little bit cleaner. And talking about cleaner, this step has a space. The name of this step, Power Query is naming the steps that I'm performing on the editor, is creating the code and is creating the name of the steps. So in this case, I have a space between the two words. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to rename my steps. I press F2 and I want to say filter files. Okay, and I'm going to remove the space between the two words, because when there are two words and there is a space in the middle, Power Query assigns a hashtag and the quotation marks to that phrase, let's say. So Power Query recognizes that anything that is inside of that hashtag and quotation marks belongs to the same name, let's say. So the code gets a little bit messy later on, and I just don't like to see it. I'm becoming very picky in that way, so I really like to see it as clean as possible. So now I have created that. Now my next step is to bring the information from my files. My files are in a binary format. I cannot do anything with that, so I can call that content by creating a new column and bringing that information with the Excel workbook function, but I don't like to create a new column. So I'm going to work on top of this content column. So I'm going to go here to the formula bar. I'm going to press F(X), and here after the equals is referring to the previous step. So it's bringing the table from the previous step. So I'm going to say table, transform columns. It's going to ask me for a table. The table is coming, as I said, from the previous step. This is the one that we are seeing. I'm going to say comma. It's going to ask me for the transformation that I want to process in that column. So, and it's asking that as list. So I'm going to open curly brackets, and that is telling Power Query that the content inside of these curly brackets is a list. So I'm going to open quotation marks, and that's just to indicate which column I want to transform. In this case, is the column content. After that, I'm going to give a comma, and then I need to provide the transformation operation. And actually, well, yeah, let's do that. So I'm going to say content, and I'm going to say each. Each is a mini function for Power Query. So it's a keyword indicating that this is a mini function. And the thing is just going to process the following. And the following is that I want to extract the Excel content from my workbook. And I'm going to open parentheses. And I want to bring that information as binary. That is exactly what I have in that column content. So I'm going to provide the underscore that indicates that I'm going to bring the information from every single line from this column. The underscore indicates every single line. So now that I have that ready, I'm going to go to the end. So after the parentheses that closes the Excel workbook, after the curly brackets for the function, then I have my closing parentheses for the table transform columns. I'm going to press enter. And now you can see that it doesn't say binary anymore. It brings the content of that file, Excel file. You can see that I have the name, data. Data is where the tables are nested. I have the item, that is 2018. I have the kind of information, where it's coming from, that is a sheet. And this hidden, I have never used it. So I'm going to go to the top of my content column. I'm going to click at those two arrows, and I'm just going to bring the tables that are nested inside of the data column. I'm going to say, OK. And now you can see that I have the content of my files. OK, I don't need any of the other columns. So for that reason, here at the end of my column, of my function, I'm going to provide double square brackets, and that is to indicate that I want to keep only one column. If I have more columns, I can provide more names of the columns. I can provide more sets of square brackets. But in this case, I only want to keep one column. So I'm bringing just one set to indicate a double set, just to indicate that these are columns. When I provided one set of square brackets, as you saw with the other query, I provided only one set of square brackets, and that transforms that information into list. In this case, I want the column. For that reason, I need to provide the two square brackets, and this is called projection. Okay, so I'm going to go here and I'm going to say data. I'm going to go to the end and I'm going to say enter. I don't need to create another step to delete this column and then just keep it, to delete the other columns and keep this column. So I can just indicate I want to keep one specific column, and that's it. I didn't create another step, right? So I'm calling about the steps. I'm gonna quickly rename my steps. I try to do that as much as possible, because always I need to go back, especially when I have a mistake. And then it's very helpful what I did in every single step. So I expanded up to my column data. Once I'm here, I can see the content of this information. Let's start transforming our tables before we expand it. I want to remove the 3 first lines before I can promote the headers. So I'm gonna go here. Yeah, let's do it in the same column. So I'm gonna create a new step, fx, and I'm gonna go equals, and I'm gonna say table, transform columns. We saw that function already. Let's start using it a little bit more. It's one of my favorite columns, functions, sorry, so I just love it. Try to use it as much as I can. So open parentheses, provide the table. The table is coming from the previous step. So this is the transformation is gonna be on the column data. Actually, it's the only column that I have, and so I don't need to provide. In this case, it's my only column. I don't need to provide the name of the column. When I leave the curly brackets empty, the transformation that I'm gonna indicate after that will be applied to all the columns that are on the table. In this case, I only have one, so that's fine. But just be aware of that, because sometimes we don't want to transform all the columns, right, with the same function. So in this case, I only have one, so I'm gonna just leave it empty. When I want to transform, sometimes I want to convert all my columns from lowercase to uppercase or to a proper or vice versa, whatever it is. So when that's the case, then we use this syntax to transform all the columns at once instead of indicating one by one that we are going to transform them. Okay, so here what I'm going to say, I want to transform the tables that were nested inside of this column, and I'm going to say that I want to process the following. I want to process Table.Skip. I want to remove the first 3 lines of those tables, and I'm going to say Table.Skip. That is the function that is going to remove those first 3 lines. I'm going to open parentheses, and it's going to ask me for the table. The table is included in every single line of that column, my only column. And the condition, I need to provide a condition or I need to provide a count. I want to make sure that I'm going to do this as dynamic as possible. So I'm going to say remove everything that is on top of the row that starts in column 1, let's say the row that contains date. So I'm going to say each of the items on the column 1 does not equal date. So anything that doesn't equal date, remove it. I'm going to close parentheses and let's see if it works. So I'm here, I'm going to click on this white part, and now I can see that I have removed dynamically the first 3 lines that I had on top of my titles. Now I'm able to promote the headers. Now my first list has become the headers. So I can use this function. I don't need to create another step. I can promote the headers from here. So after the first each that you see here, where I'm going to transform the content of my column, after that, I'm going to go there and I'm going to say table, promote headers, right here. I'm going to open parentheses. And what is the table? The table is the result of this Table.Skip, where I remove the top rows. And I'm going to go to the end, close parentheses, enter. Now, and I'm going to keep this open so you can see the whole function. So now I can see the content of my tables, and you can see that I have date, province. Now the first line has become the headers. Excellent. That is what I wanted to do. Now the next step, let's start. I see a quick questions here, and I'm going to just take the chance to answer right away. So Harry is asking, Table.Skip stops at the date row. Why not skip the rest of the table rows too? So it's my understanding that this function, how it works is as soon as it finds the word that matches with what you're saying here, it stops. It doesn't delete more. So that is my understanding with how it works, how Table.Skip works, and it has always worked like that for me. If this word, let's say, if instead of date it says dates, you will see that then it deletes everything. Okay. In my case, it found what I indicated. Anything that does not equal date on the top, then remove it, and that's why it stops in dates. Okay, I hope that answers your question. I hope I understood your question correctly, and I hope it answers. Okay, excellent. Okay, no problem, anytime. Okay, now let's start creating some exciting things here. First thing, we have the directory where my file is coming from, right? In this source, and I totally forgot to do that, but anyhow. So, okay, so I have this directory that is hard-coded. Well, let's do it in a dynamic way, or not dynamic, but in an easier way, because let's say now we are seeing this fantastic. If you get this source file, and then you will want to bring the files from this folder, you need to come to the code and change that information here. Let's quickly create a blank query here on the right-click, new query, other sources, blank query. And what I'm going to do here, I'm going to go from demo live. I'm going to go to source. I'm going to copy the directory, everything inside of the quotation marks, Control C. I'm going to go to my query. And as is, I'm going to say Control V, and I'm going to say enter. Here I have the value, right? Power Query works with values, and that's what it's going to be looking for. My query will be called my directory. If I can spell correctly. So I'm going to go to demo live, and I'm going to say source. I'm going to remove everything inside of the parentheses, including the quotation marks, and I'm going to call this my directory, and I'm going to go and at the end, enter. Nothing changes because it's the right directory, let's say. But what happens if I remove this part? I'm going to say Control X to remove, enter. If I go to demo live, if I go here, of course, there are errors because the information that I'm bringing is from my desktop, which doesn't match with any of the information that I provided and I asked Power Query to bring, right? So it's giving me errors in here, and these tables is because I have some of the information that is inside of one folder that is within my desktop, okay? So you see that this changes as the directory changes as well. So I'm gonna put back the folder that I was working with. I go to demo live, and now I can see my information is back to clean, right? So this is the part where you can change your directory. When you get queries that are gonna change directories, I recommend that you prepare something like this to make it easier for the users to change those directories when needed, okay? Excellent. So let's say, and let's go back to our query. Now we saw how to filter through another query. Let's create two parameters. So I'm going to go to Home, Manage Parameters, New Parameter. And this is going to be called my mean, mean amount. It's going to be my minimum amount. And I'm going to select here is required. I'm going to say type is going to be a decimal number. It could be any value, and current value, I'm going to say 1500 for now. That is my parameter. I'm going to create another one. I can duplicate this and change the settings, or I can create another parameter. I'm going to go back to manage parameter, new parameter, and I'm going to call this my max amount. Same thing. I'm going to select decimal number. Any value is fine, and I'm going to say the current value is going to be 1700. Okay. So I want a number that is between 1500 and 1700. Let's go back to our query. I'm going to put the query this here down below. And I'm going to say that I want to filter the content of these tables that is between 1500 and 1700. And how I'm going to do that? Well, we're going to create a new step here. I'm going to create a new step. And in this case, I'm going to add a new column because I want to show you, let's say, the before and the after. So to do that, I need the two columns to show you the difference. So I can go to add column, custom column, or here where I am, I can say equal. I can say table add column. And it's exactly the same code that Power Query could create for me. So it's going to ask me for a table. The table is coming from my previous step, custom one. That reminds me that I didn't rename it, but we'll rename it in a minute. So, and then it's going to ask me for the new name for the column. The column will be called with filters, let's say. With filter, yeah. And this just any name, just whatever makes sense to you, but for me, just something to differentiate, right? So that will be with filters. And I'm going to say that what I need to process within that column, the column that is going to be added to the existing that is coming from the previous step. So what I need to provide there is I want to select the rows. I want to filter, so I'm going to say table select rows. And open parentheses. What is the table? Well, table is coming or is nested inside of my column data. So I'm going to say, I'm going to provide the square brackets within this function to indicate that I'm referring to a column. I need to provide one set of square brackets. I'm going to say data, and I'm going to say comma. And the condition is that each, unfortunately, I didn't expand that. So here, right, there we go. I will say each, what is the condition? And let me put this one down here, shift enter. So it looks a little bit better. So I'm control the square, closing a square bracket just to indent kind of 3 spaces or so. And I will say table select rows from the data column. What I want to process there, I want that, what was that? Sales. Sales was the name of the column with the sales. So sales amounts, I'm going to say sales is equal, so is greater or equal to 1500, but in this case, I have a parameter for that. So I'm going to say min amount, and that amount needs to be from this, needs to come from the sales column, and it needs to be lower or equal to 1700, which will be my maximum amount. Close parentheses for the table select rows, close parentheses for the table add column, and I press enter. And now you can see here within the nested tables, now you have amounts on the sales column between 1500 and 1700. If I go here, let me minimize this a little bit. If I go to the previous table without the filters, you will see that I have several amounts. Let's say I have 1100, I have 1790, which is out of the range that I selected as a filter. Now that I go to my column where I have the filters, you won't see any of those 1100 or 1790. They are gone because they don't meet with the criteria that I told Power Query here, that it needs to be between these sales, needs to be between the 1500 and the 1700, right? So minimum and maximum. If I change this parameter here and I change it for, let's say, 1600, I go to my query, and now I can see that in my table, all the 1500s are gone, and I only have amounts between 1600 and 1700. So the filters through the parameters are working. Okay, so 100, let's say, to have a little bit more of data that we're going to work with. Excellent. Now I have that information ready. And now what I want to see, I want to expand it because now I want to filter by the provinces. Let's say I can also filter the provinces without expanding the tables. I can do that, or I can expand the tables and filter by that. It doesn't matter. I just follow the same process that I just did right now, right? And I could add another criteria to my function to say that also I want to filter by the list, okay? So, but let's expand this and let me present how I can do it, expand it. Because I want to expand this, I don't want to keep any of the information that is in the data column. I want to keep only the tables that are from my column with filters. If I expand here from these rows, if I expand this information, the column data stays there, and also the names of the columns are hard-coded, and I don't like that. So I'm going to delete this step, and instead of that, after this step where I have my 2 columns, I'm going to create a new step, and I'm going to press FX here on the side of the formula bar, and I'm going to say that equals table combined. And this is to combine the information that is in a specific column. So I'm going to open parentheses. I'm going to say custom 2. That is the name of my previous step that I haven't renamed. And it's going to ask me for a table as, or for a table or tables as list. The way to create a table is saying from my previous step, in order to create a list is to say from my previous step, that is a table, I'm going to bring the column with filters as we saw when we created our provinces list. Same is going to follow the same process, let's say, or the same logic. So I'm going to close parentheses, I press enter, and of course it didn't work. And it didn't work because, let me see. Why
there's an S missing there in the filters word.
Thank you, Celia. Thank you.
Paying attention.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Okay, awesome. Close parentheses, and I press enter. And now you can see that the table expanded without having hard-coded names, expanded all of that, and I don't have the column data anymore. When you use this formula or this function, rather, when you use the function table combine, it will bring only the information, it will expand the tables only from this specific column that we are telling Power Query to do that, and it's going to ignore everything else. It's going to keep only the information from that column. Okay, so for that reason, in some of my tutorials, you will notice that I like to bring information from other columns inside of the column that I want to expand later on. So I don't have to keep any of those other columns around. And I can do this using table combine, and I expand everything at once at the end. So but that's a topic for another tutorial, right? So anyhow, let's say I have expanded now my information, and now I want to start filtering my provinces. I have a list of provinces here. I have 3 provinces. And here on my query demo live, I have 4 provinces in total: Alberta, British Columbia, Ontario, and Saskatchewan. My list has only 3, doesn't have Ontario, but I did it with a purpose, because we are going to add that in Excel, so you will see how it refreshes, right? So I'm going to cancel that. You just wanted to show you how many provinces I have here. So now let's filter this information. Here, I can create a new step, or I can use this existing function to grab it within the table select rows. Let's create another step to make it a little bit more clear, right? So I'm going to just click at the FX, and I'm going to say equal. I have created a new step, and I'm going to say equal table select rows. I'm going to open parentheses. It's going to ask me for the table. The table is coming from my step custom 3, comma. What is the condition? The condition is each. So process the following, and I'm going to say that I want that to use the List.Contains. I want to use the function List.Contains, and I need to provide a list. We did that already. I have my list of provinces. So I'm going to say provinces, comma. And what is the value? Well, the value will be compared with the province column. So I'm going to open a square bracket, and I want to say province. Go to the end, close parentheses for table select rows, and I'm going to say enter. And now you will see that Ontario is not here anymore because it's not included in the list. Excellent. So it seems like it's working, right? So that is great. And I forgot to duplicate my query at one point. So let's do that. So I'm going to get my query here. So this information, I am ready to pass it to Excel, but I missed 2 steps. So first thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to duplicate my query. So I'm going to duplicate this, and this will become my minimum date. So I need to see which part of the query is where I get all the information. Oh, right here. This is where I got all my information without additional filters, right? I just filtered the information by the amount that I wanted to filter based on the parameters. And that's it. I expanded, and this is before we filter by the provinces. That's fine. That doesn't affect me. So I'm going to delete the last step, and this is what I want to keep. From here, and actually, I'm wondering if I would like to expand the data column instead that has everybody. Let's do that. Let me go back here, and I'm going to expand here. I'm going to create a new step, and I'm going to say table combine. I should have just changed it But anyways, table combine. I'm going to open parentheses. And I'm going to say that now I want to combine the column data. I'm going to close parentheses and I'm going to say enter. And here is just to bring me all the dates that I have in my files. Okay. And now I just want to keep the column date, but I want to keep it as a list. So I'm going at the end of the function. So I'm going to just open a square bracket and I'm going to type date and I'm going to say enter. So my list has become, my column dates has become into a list. So I'm going to just say after the equal, I'm going to say list min. So this is going to bring me the minimum date that I have in that list. So open parentheses, go to the end, close parentheses, and I'm going to say enter. This is my minimum date in my files. So I'm going to duplicate this. Well, right click in minimum date. I'm going to press F2, delete the end and change minimum for maximum. And I'm going to say enter. And here, instead of using the function list min, I'm going to use the function list max. I'm going to say enter at the end. And now I have my maximum date from my files. Excellent. I'm going to use this later on. So now I'm ready to pass this to Excel. I'm going to go to home, close and load, and close and load. Here is where everything starts. So in here, I'm going to create, I'm going to select only create connection, and I'm going to say OK. Otherwise, I'm going to have all the queries created as tables and different tabs, and I don't want that. I just want to control where I'm going to load this information to. Okay, the first thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to bring my minimum and maximum date. I'm going to right click on minimum date. I'm going to say load to, and I'm going to load it in a table on the existing worksheet here on D2. And I'm going to say OK. This is my minimum. I'm going to do the same with the maximum. Right click, load to, and I'm going to say table, okay, existing right here, and I'm going to say OK. Okay, I have my minimum and my maximum. I know now where my ranges are, right? So if I'm going to filter information, I can see what information I have available to filter, right? And also because sometimes when I'm filtering, I'm going to filter and I'm going to say, oh, I want 2021. And then 2021 doesn't come. And it's like, why doesn't come? Well, I know that to start with, my source doesn't have 2021, right? So I find this helpful in that way, just to have an idea or to have a guide what the information is including, right? So including, especially when other people are going to use it and they don't go through the code as much. So here I have a clear picture what my information is, which range of information I have available for my filters, right? So now that I have this, now I'm going to create something. So I'm going to say date to, because I'm going to create my filters. So and date from. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, excellent. Sorry, there might be questions that I haven't seen because I still have a lot to show you guys. So I'm trying to go as fast as I can. So thank you so much. Okay, so day 2. So I'm going to start. What is going to be my starting date? So my starting date will be, let's say, 2019-1-1. I'm in Canada, so that's how we have our dates start with the year, the month, the day, or vice versa. Or this day, year, month, and day. So I have this at home, but at work I have the US. So sometimes it's a little bit confusing. So anyhow, so 2020, let's say I want to filter 2020, now that I know, so it's 2020-6-1, let's say. Let's start from January 2019 up to June 1st, 2020. And I'm going to transform this into a table. So I'm going to just say...
Alejandra,
yes.
Sorry to interrupt you. Do you want to change the titles at the top? So from and then to, date from.
Oh, thank you so much, Celia. Yeah, the story of my life. I'm all over the place, and then later, oh, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. So thank you so much. So now I selected the titles, and I just bold them. In this case, Power Query had, Excel could have recognized that these are the titles because we have text and we have dates. So Excel had recognized that. But sometimes when we have text, and we don't have the bold on the top, so Excel sometimes doesn't recognize that those are titles because there is no really a difference between those lines, right? In this case, I'm just used to bold whatever is going to be title, so I just bolded, right? So and I have it here. I'm going to say Control T. So it's going to ask me if I want to create a table, and now it recognizes that there are some titles there, and that's why the check mark. Control L also works, and that's because back in the day, the tables were called lists, and the shortcut remains. Control L to transform this into a table also works. So I'm going to say OK, and I'm going to give another color to this. So I'm going to use orange just to separate what is what, right? So here I have my what is going to be my filters for the dates. So I'm going to go table design. I'm going to rename this table. Right now it's called table 4, but I want to say from 2. So I know that is my table that has the dates from 2. And I'm going to right click and I'll say get data from table race. And I said, if you don't have this version of Excel, you can go to data and find the option that it says from table range. Go to your Power Query editor. And now you can see that your table is here. Control-Shift+ to zoom in. And I can see that Power Query created, again, 2 steps. Is where my information is coming from. And also it changed the type. But it changed the type incorrectly, incorrectly for me, because I don't want the time. It brought the date and the time, but I don't want that. So I can click here on any of the columns and one of the squares, and I can change that to date, or here on the formula bar, you can see that here the type was assigned as date type, date time. So I'm going to delete time. I just want the type date. So I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to go there, and I'm going to say enter. And now you can see that we have only the short date. I don't need the other one. So in here, I can start with from. So I'm going to duplicate this. So right click to my query, duplicate, because one will be from and the other one will be to. And these are going to be my filters. And date from. Sorry about that. And should be from. Enter. And this will be day 2. Enter. And then from the first one, I can right click here and drill down. And that's going to give me a code that will look like this. So it will bring me the first line, which is base 0. The first line is 0 for Power Query. So first line is 0, second line is 1, and so on and so forth. And also, I want to bring the first line that is coming from my column date from. And I'm going to say enter. And that is going to bring me the information that is contained in that specific cell, let's say. Let's go to day 2. And if I go here, right click, and I say grid down, it will do exactly the same, but it will refer to my previous step. So it will create an additional step. It will refer to that step. It will bring the first line, which is 0, from the column day 2. It's the same result, but in here you can see it in 3 steps. Right over here, you just do it manually, and you see it in 2 steps. I like to play with the code, so I love to do this. And I try to introduce you to use the code more. It's so fantastic. So anyhow, now I have my filters here, and let's organize this. This is quite messy. So I'm going to right click, I'm going to go to new group, and I'm going to say filters. And what I'm going to bring there, we use the provinces as filter. So I'm going to move that query there. I use the minimum and maximum parameters. Let's move it there as well. What do I have here? The directory. I should have just moved everything there and just keep my query on the other queries because, oh no, actually, not only just date from and date 2. Select these 2 and I'm going to drag them here. And I'm going to move my query at the bottom and I keep just my minimum and maximum. This went to Excel. So these 3 items that I have on the left, they went to my Excel. Just bringing one column. can you, I'm just seeing one question here from Tanya and say, can you change the code to just bring in the one column? So very quickly, I'm imagining in here, let's say in the max or in the min date. So let's say, what is that minimum date? Oh no, I moved the other one here. And date from, for example, let's say if I have my source here and I bring just one column, let's say on source, I'm going to provide the double square brackets. And let's say if I want to keep only date from, I say date from, I go to the end and I press enter, and it brings only one column. And in this case, oh, I kept the one that I shouldn't. So date from, what did I do? Oh no, it's because the column 2. Oh yeah, it's because that's why I don't like to use change type, because it gets everything hard-coded. In this case, I didn't plan in doing more transformations. That's why I was fine keeping that as that step. But if I remove that part here, because I don't have date from, now that I transform my source, that I don't have the other column, and I press enter, and then everything works out perfectly. Okay, so you can modify that from the source, and you can modify that to bring only one column. Okay, I hope that answered your question. And the result at the end is the same that I created before, but now it's just bringing that specific column, and we're working just with that specific column. Okay, excellent. Now let's go back to our query. Let's filter. Yes, thank you, Kristen. Yes, the change type can be disabled, but if I disable it, I forget to mention, and then I receive a lot of questions in my videos, why they have errors. And it's because they have the change type, and if I remove it, then I forget to mention that it needs to be deleted. So that's why I always keep it. So, but yes, at work, I disable that because it really is, sometimes it's very annoying. But anyhow, okay, that is another topic for another tutorial. Okay, excellent. Okay, now we have here, let's start filtering our dates very quickly. Let's say I have the province, and I can also say here in my last step, after this image, I told Power Query that I wanted to filter by the provinces included in my list. We saw already that I can add conditions, right? So I can add a condition here and say and. And what I want to do here is to tell Power Query that my column date needs to be, I'm going to say date is greater or equal to my minimum date. I have my query already here, right? So, and my date column needs to be lower or equal to maximum date. And but I pray that this works. It didn't work. So let's see what happens. We cannot convert the value. Okay. Oh, sorry. It's because I removed one parenthesis that belongs to this specific formula or function, sorry. And then I should have added the other criteria. So I have an extra parenthesis, and I say enter. Okay, so it worked. It's because I remove a parenthesis. And of course, if I remove that parenthesis, this function doesn't know what is going on because I'm giving some arguments that don't make any sense, right? So now that I put this parenthesis back, then Power Query says, okay, this is one condition and other condition and another condition. Okay, that's what happened. Okay. So here I have my transformation or my filter working in a way that is going to recognize those dates, right? But well, let's go to Excel. I'm going to go home, close and load to, and just to make sure that everything is working properly, I'm going to only create connection. I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to bring my query demo live, right click, load to, and I'm going to load that as a table right here. on the existing worksheet, and I'm going to bring that over here. I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to move a little bit over here. And these ones, I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. And of course, this is not formatted. Power Query recognizes or assigns the data type, but in here, and actually, I'm not sure if I changed the data type. Let me try. So I'm going to select the column, and I can just go here and say short date, and sure enough, it works. So it recognized the numbers as dates. The same in Power Query, same in Excel. The dates are really numbers. So once I have this information here, what I don't see is that it recognized my filter. So let's see what happens, okay? So I'm gonna just say 2019. So let's say 2020, 1, enter, and see what works. It doesn't work. So let me go back to my query. And that's why I wanted to check. It cannot be. It cannot be because I did this 3 times yesterday and it worked.
Yeah, you just made a mistake there with your you picked up min and max date instead of the date from and date to there. Yeah, so just
thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Celia.
No worries, no. Yeah, I know when we are presenting, our focus gets very narrowed, and it's easier for who is like me here just watching.
Thank you.
I can keep track of more stuff. I know how it is.
So close and load. Let's go back and see that it works, and it do work. Thank you, Celia, the hero. So, thank you. So as you can see, the information is filtered. But what happens if I leave this empty, right? So if I leave that empty, I right-click to my table and I refresh, and then it doesn't know what to do because then the criteria is not matching. So let's go back to our query. Double-click there. And we need to tell Power Query, well, if this is empty, then bring me my minimum date. I knew that the minimum date was going to be useful somehow. I just didn't bring it to the right place. So what I'm gonna do, thank you. Yeah, the adrenaline is just, thank you so much, Mark. Thank you for encouragement. So then I think, okay, what is going on? Well, let's go back here. And let's tell Power Query what to do when this is empty. So I'm gonna Control-Shift+, and then I'm gonna hide the queries. Here on the code, inside of the code, now I'm wondering if I should better just open the advanced editor. Let's open the advanced editor. Everything that we're doing right now is being recorded and is being kept here in the advanced editor on the view tab. So I'm gonna open that. I'm gonna Control-Shift+ to zoom in. And this is my last step that I never renamed from step constant 1 up to the end. But anyhow, so we are running out of time, and I'm just afraid that I'm not going to have time to show you everything. This is my last step where I have those conditions. After my each, I'm going to press enter, and I'm going to add an additional let. So we're going to work with nested lets. And we already have a let here. We have an let and in, so are expressions that are going to tell Power Query whatever is inside of these 2 expressions. Let is the beginning of is the first, is the open expression, let's say. Inside of this, you are going to find variables. These variables are the names of the steps. Every single variable is going to return a value. The value is going to be returned by using these functions. So we're going to tell Power Query that we want an additional let and in expression to process some calculations inside of this step. So this let needs to provide variables. The variable here will be, I'm going to just call it X. I'm going to say X. You can put any name, right? So just make sure that if that name has spaces, you need to grab that within a hashtag and quotation marks. In this case, let's say if I have X, Y, if I want to do that as name of that variable, then I need to grab it inside of my hashtag and my quotation mark that would be the name of that variable, like the name of these steps, right? When they have any space. In this case, I don't want to complicate my life more than I usually do. So I'm going to just say X, right? So that is the name of my variable. And my variable is going to say if. That is date from. If the date from equals null, then bring me the information that is in the minimum amount. Else, if it's not empty, then bring me the information that is inside of that cell, that is inside of that filters that we created, that it says date from. So I'm going to say enter. I'm going to say comma because I have a step after that. And my next variable will be called y, and that's going to say that that is equal. And now I'm going to say if day2 equals null, then bring me the maximum amount. Oh, actually, it's not maximum amount, it's maximum date. I was going to have another error there. My heart is going to pay for that. Okay, minimum date, maximum date. Perfect. Anything else? And here, if day2 is empty, then bring me the maximum date. Anything else? That means if it's not empty, then bring me the information that is inside of day2. This is my last step inside of this additional let or nested let. So I'm going to say enter. Every single let, I need to close it with an in. That is, let's say, the let opens the calculation, the in closes the calculation and provides the result. And my result in here, I want to bring the information as follows. And I'm going to say that the result will be for my table select rows, that is bringing the table that is coming from the previous step, is going to select the rows as follows. So processing the following. It's going to filter by the provinces that are included in the province list, and it's going to bring the date from, okay, is equal, and now I got confused again, because I was playing with the date from and date to, but give me just a second, because yeah, at this point, okay, perfect. Instead of my date from, because that's the one that can change, right? This can be empty or not empty, and I don't want to bring that. I want to bring the result of my X. My X will bring or the information that is inside of date from, but if that is null, then it will bring me the minimum date. So this is what I'm going to replace my variable here. Instead of bring date from, it will bring me the result of my X. Same thing with my Y. If the date2 is empty, then it will bring me the maximum date. So I'm going to change that for my Y. And I think this should work. And I pray the gods that this works. So let's say I'm going to say done. And it does work. So, okay, now let's go to Excel. Home, close and load too. And now let's wait for this to be refreshed. And because it's empty, the date from, then it will bring from the starting point of my files. Of course, I have a filter here for the amount, and I have a filter for the provinces. That's why it's very hard that counting with all those filters, that information will start from January 8, right? That is my minimum. But when I change here, okay, just let me finish my thought here. When I change this to say 2019-11, enter, let's say I want to start from January 2019, I'm going to refresh here. And then I have my data starting from 2019-11, but as I said, because we have other filters, so remember that we have amounts between 1,500 and 1,700, and also we have only a filter for 3 provinces, and that reminds me, our files have information from Ontario as well. I'm going to press enter, and because this is a table, it will add this information automatically to my table. I'm going to right-click, refresh, and now you will see that my table brings information from Ontario as well, from my files, okay? And, okay, thank you. Thank you. Someone responded to Henry. Thank you so much. So, excellent. So we saw that, yeah, that's what I was thinking about, Celia, maybe just with a VBA to refresh. So Henry is asking if it's possible to avoid having to refresh manually. So let's say to avoid this refreshing here. The way that I know is refreshing through a macro, and it's just a very simple macro. Just that you can do that with the recording, right? So you can record that. So you can just start your macro recording and refresh, right? And then stop your macro. But I prefer to just do it manually. It feels good. I don't know. I just like it. So I'm really liking this Power Query. So anyhow. Let me show you what happens when I have the day 2 empty. It will have exactly the same effect that it had with the day from, but now it will bring my maximum date to 2022-12-26. And in this case, I will have everything up to December, okay? So it works. So let me show you what happened quickly when I bring an additional file. In this case, I have 2021. I show you at the beginning this trick or this result. So I'm going to copy this file that is in another folder that is called additional information that I have on my desktop. And I'm going to bring it to the folder where we have all our other files, Control V. So now I have 2021 here. And I'm going to select in my day 2, I'm going to say 2021, let's say June 1st. So I'm going to go to data and I'm going to refresh all, because if I just refresh my table, look what happens. If I just refresh my table, right click and refresh, it doesn't bring me the information from 2021, even though I added the file. And that is because these queries need to refresh first. So I'm going to go to data, refresh all. If I'm correct, yeah, I think so, because these are connected. So my minimum needs to be brought to my query editor, or need to be brought there and then update. So once I have that ready, now you can see that our maximum date changed to 2021. Now that works in here as well. So let's go here and we will see that 2021 is included up from January to May, and that is because I asked the information only up to June 2021. If I leave this empty, refresh my table with the information, then it will bring the information from 2021 up to December 2021. And it works. Phew. It works. So glad. Thank you so very much. This is all that I have for you today. I hope you found something new or something that you knew already. It was kind of refresher for you. I know there are a lot of people here who have very advanced knowledge in Power Query. So thank you so much for staying and for being here. So thank you so much. I hope it was useful. And let me know if you have any questions.
Alejandra, there is one question from Baljit Sangra. He said, or she, I'm sorry, could the query my directory be replaced by a parameter?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to show you the different ways, but yeah, it can be both. So let me go back here and I'm gonna go to home, manage parameters, new parameter, and thank you. Thank you. Okay, and here let's say in this case, I'm gonna call it my location, because yeah, I have that query that is called my directory. So I don't want any issues with the name. So I'm gonna call it my location or my directory parameter or something like that. And I'm gonna say this is gonna be text. And then the value, I should have copied the value first. I always forget to copy the value. So I'm gonna go here, Control C, and then I'm gonna go to the parameter and here current value, I say Control V, and I'm gonna say okay. And this information, now here, I'm gonna go to my query, demo live, and saying source, instead of saying my directory, that is referring to the query, not to the parameter. My directory is here referring to, where did I go? My directory here. Now I'm going to change that for my location. That is the parameter. I'm going to say my location, enter, at the end, enter. And now it works the same. And you can see I have more files open, and that's the reason why you can see more files right now. But at the end of the day, when we filter all that information, it brings only the files that we're gonna work with. So it works in the same way. So at the end of the day, this is just a value, and I learned that very recently with Ben. I always forget his last name, but I strongly recommend his course, Meetup. How Power Query thinks. Fantastic course. So I just learned,
right?
Yes. Thank you, Celia. Thank you. Yes, fantastic course. So, and I just learned that this is just a value. And if you click here, I didn't know that. If you click here, to remove all of this information that says meta, this is the parameter, right? If you remove all of that, and I think the quotation marks as well, but let me see. And I say, okay, no, just that. It becomes just a value. That's it. It's very interesting. If you go to the view, advanced editor, and you add that part, Control V. Oh, no. Oh, I deleted. Okay, give me just 1 second. I can copy that again. Discard. Just let me copy that from here. I go to advanced editor. This portion. This is what becomes that value into a parameter. But at the end of the day, it's just a value. So you go, I was my location, view. I think it should work. Otherwise, we do it right now. Okay. Control V.
Just the number type. Not sure if that affects.
Type. Oh, that's right. It might affect.
It's probably text or something.
Yeah, it might affect though. Yeah, so let me text here. Text there. Okay, thank you. I should have just left it. No, let me just to make sure. I don't want to confuse you more. So yes, thank you for sharing his website. It's fantastic. So here, let's say text. That is the part. And I'm gonna just give whatever right now. And I just want to copy the end. I'm gonna go to view, advanced editor, Control C plus. Yes, that's right. Thank you so much. Thank you. So I'm gonna Control C. And I go back to my location, right? So that's where I deleted that part. And you go here and you paste it. And you say done. It becomes a parameter again. So it's very interesting. So at the end of the day, the parameter is just a value. So if it's a query, if it's a parameter, what you are grabbing is the value. No the parameter, not the query. Is you are grabbing the value into your other query. Okay, I hope I didn't confuse you too much there.
It's great. Yeah, thank you so much, Alejandra. Are there any more questions? I have a question.
Yes.
It was a delight to see all that MCode work. I have to confess, I am a lot lazier. So is all that work that you did with the MCode to combine the files from the folder, creating those extra columns with the tables, cleaning the tables with the MCode and all that, is it just to avoid having the helper queries that we get by default when we just use connection to a folder and then we expand one of the columns with the content and we get all these helper queries that our query creates for us for the parameter with a sample file, transform sample file, all that.
Mm-hmm.
So do you prefer to work this way instead of using those helper queries, or it's just because it's just fun to work with M or and have your it's cleaner to have it like that, so less folders with queries and all that. What is your motivation to do it like that?
I like to control what I combine and how I combine it. In the beginning, I used a lot the combined queries or the combined tables, and I just let Power Query to create everything for me. But the issue is when the columns are not the same, or there is a variation on the name of the columns, or there is something that is out of my control. It created me some errors, or some columns didn't come because the sample didn't have those columns, or didn't have that specific case. So that's when I thought, like, oh, this, I don't have control over this. And I create those helper queries manually, let's say. I create the, how do you say, the sample, I create the parameter, so I convert it to a function, but I do it myself rather than leaving Power Query to do it for me, because then I choose what I want to use as a sample. I will choose what I use for the parameter, and then I can control myself that, and I can update my function based on how I update my query. What I like about the combining process is that if you modify your query, your function updates, right? So in the way that kind of Power Query does that for you, if you create it in that way, I like that approach because you update both things at a time. When you do it manually and you don't create that sample and that parameter and that function from that parameter, then if you update your query where you start working on, you have to update your function because you didn't connect them correctly, let's say, or you didn't connect it in the way that both are going to update at the same time. But I really am enjoying very much working with M, that now I'm preferring just to do it manually because I also find it that I understand better other functions when I'm working with the ones that I'm more familiar with. Now I'm looking more into what the function is asking me to provide, what is optional, and how I need to provide some of that information, because I still struggle a lot with when do I provide the curly brackets? When do I provide the square brackets? When do that, right? So for me, working with the MCode is helping me more and more to understand more how functions are and what they are asking me. So it's a combination. I like to keep control of what is being transformed and combined. And also it's just helping me to understand the code or M better. So yeah,
that's for sure.
Yeah, but it's a lot of work. It is. So yeah, but it's fantastic. I just love M. The more that you learn, like the more it gets, it's very generous. So it's very nice to work with them. So I encourage everyone to give it a try. It's very awesome. Yes.
Christian has a question.
Yes.
Where did it go? Adding to Celia's question, have you compared the performance of the UI generated query versus the MCode generated ones?
I haven't compared the performance, but when I use M, if I notice that it's quite slow for the number of lines of the amount of data that I have, because sometimes it's not just the amount of rows, it's what you have inside of those rows, right? So when I see that, and I see that it shouldn't be that slow, it gives me the opportunity to test something different. So for example, if I use the UI, I just keep whatever Power Query codes for me, right? But if I'm working with M, if I'm working with lists, or if I'm working with ranges within a list, so maybe instead of working and generate the total rows, let's say, in one function to generate that inside of the function that is going to calculate that every single row, instead of doing that, then I better create a step where I want to have the count of those rows and then refer my function to that step instead of calculating those rows every single line of that table. So for me, using M gives me the opportunity to test other approaches and see which one is faster or gives me better results faster, let's say. So yeah, that's as far as I go. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, very good. Thank you so much, Alejandra. Do you want to, if I don't think there's more questions, if there are, just let us know. If you feel free to either turn on your mics or ask the question in the chat. People are saying thank you, and let us know where people can follow you, where people can connect with you.
Oh, yes, thank you. I always forget that. I never present that slide, ever. So let me move it. Okay, perfect. And here is where you can connect with me. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. And let me move this on the side. What happened? For some reason, this is duplicated. Oh my goodness. You can see all my okay, let me do this. Excellent. Okay. You can contact me on LinkedIn as Alejandra Horvath. I have my 2 channels. One is Alejandra Horvath. The other one is Alejandra Horvath en español. Or you can contact me in, how is it called?
Instagram.
Instagram, thank you. I don't use it often, as you can see. So you can contact me there as I am Alejandra Horvath. So Alejandra Horvath was in use already. So I am Alejandra Horvath. So that is where you can contact me. And you can join me every Saturday in my channel with live presentations. Now where my teams go. I don't know what happened, but I don't see anything anymore. I don't see my teams.
You can stop sharing, I guess.
Yeah, okay, here we are. Or
I guess it will make it easier. There you go.
Yeah, you can see me now? Okay,
we
perfect.
Can.
Excellent. Yes, so you can join me there. Now, I'm going to change the time on the Saturdays because I'm not sleeping enough. And now I got sick last Saturday, and I couldn't present. So I'm going to move the Saturday ones on the afternoon so I can get my sleep properly. And then I don't need to cancel like I had to do last Saturday. It's the first time ever that I cancel, and I feel awful because now I'm creating the habit to be there every Saturday. And even if I just announce it the Friday night before, people are there. So I really appreciate that. So, oh yes, I have Twitter. Someone asked me Twitter. It's Alejandra Horvath. Okay. So you Twitter. Excellent. So, but Saturday, it will continue on Saturdays, but I'm going to move it to the afternoons. And I am still unsure if it's 5 or 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. That would be 7 or 8 Eastern Time. But yeah, I'm there on Saturdays, and I'm in Tuesdays and Thursdays in Spanish. Tuesdays is cases more advanced or intermediate advanced, like the ones that we saw today, and that type of cases. And Thursdays are just basic because there are too many people that want to join the Tuesdays, but they are starting their journey in Power Query. So it's just to give them that push to get there. And so Thursdays, I just started with those ones 3 weeks ago or so. So yeah, basic in Spanish, Thursdays at 6:15 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, 8:15 Eastern Time. Yeah. And I start having guests. Yesterday was my first time having guests in Spanish. Yes, where we are presenting how they use Power Query for what they do. And it was a couple, a gentleman and a lady, who went to Bilbao to present that presentation that they did yesterday. They presented that in Bilbao. They had the Power BI days out there. The Spain community is very big out there, so they came to my channel yesterday to present.
And we had,
yeah, so Ana Maria Bisbe, John Vergara were there and just visiting us and just cheering for these 2 guys, Ivan and Natalia. So it was fantastic. So yeah, we're growing as a Spanish community, let's say. There is not as much information in Spanish as there is in English. So it's nice to see that we can contribute somehow to spread the word. And I just love to give back to so much that I have learned, because really 2 years ago, I had no clue of Power Query, and look how far starting with Celia, how far the whole community has helped me to come through. And now it's so nice to be able to give back somehow a little portion of how much I have learned. So thank you so very much.
And we're very grateful for your giving back, because you're giving back a lot. It's a lot of work that what you're doing, and I'm sure people are appreciative of that.
Yes.
Alejandra, thank you so much. Great pleasure to have you here.
Yes,
are there any other questions? If you want to turn on your videos, feel free to do so. Your cameras, your microphone. Feel free to say goodbye to Alejandra, and I'm going to stop the recording now. Thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Everyone.